And okay, recording started. All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me. This is actually our last class, if you can believe it or not. So this block's gone by really fast. So this will be the last thing you need to do to finish everything up. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to be going over political systems. Just a couple things of note. One, this lesson is being recorded for learning purposes. And let me go over where it's at. Yes, right. This will be the last class, live class there will be. Let me just kind of run through some things that are going on. So this week, we have a live class, we have our class recording, and then we have assignment 6 due as well as the course reflection. So those will be due on Friday. And if we look here, if we go to the course plan real quick, I'm going to get that popped up real quick so you can see it. The week after that, we just have, as this is loading, the post test. So you want to get that done by the 15th. Everything is going to be basically zeroed out, and then we go on winter break. Okay, winter break will go on. We come back, and everything will be due on the 11th. That's why this is the last class, and everything is going to be assigned to you today. And then what we're going to be going over is basically Unit 6, which is political systems over here. So just a little bit of, let me see here. How do I say it nicely? A little bit of caveat here for this lesson. We're not going to be going into like political policy or like anything like that. I know everybody has their own little political views. That's great. I just want to try to be as neutral as possible and just kind of roll through this. But what we're going to be looking at is in the OLS, what you're going to do is you're going to take a little quiz that basically goes over like key political figures in the United States, the different political parties, those kind of things. Okay. Just the same thing with all of our virtual expectations. Make sure you're following along with the Nearpod lesson, using the chat tool respectfully and appropriately, and responding to questions and instructions the first time. Okay, let's jump into political parties. Everybody's least favorite topic. Let's just say that. All right, so political parties. There is, if you can imagine that or not, a divide in the country between political parties and what they believe. There are two major parties. We're going to talk about those, but we'll also be talking about third parties today. So the way everything works, what we're going to do is we're going to watch this little video for a little bit that's going to go over some of the very basics of these, and then we'll move on from there.
There are two main political parties in the United States, the Republicans and the Democrats. What is a political party? Why are there only two main parties? A political party is a group of people who have joined together because they share common principles, common beliefs, and common values, and they seek to control government by winning elections. Members of a party work to convince the government to adopt laws, regulations, and programs which reflect their party's beliefs. Political parties have a long history, both in the United States and in other countries as well. The United States has what is known as a two-party system. A two-party system is a political structure in which only two political parties have a genuine chance of winning elections. However, it does not mean that only two parties are allowed to exist, as there are numerous other smaller parties. The two-party system developed in Great Britain. In the latter half of the 1600s and throughout the 1700s, two political parties, the Whigs and the Tories, emerged and established themselves as the dominant parties. This long-standing tradition of two main parties probably led to the eventual adoption of a similar system in the United States. Initially, the Founding Fathers intended for the American government to avoid politics. In fact, in his farewell address, George Washington warned against the existence of political parties, suggesting that such organizations were the enemies of government and would only distract government from its intended purpose. However, early political disagreements gave rise to the Federalist Party and the Democratic Republican Party. Since that time, the United States has nearly always had two dominant parties. Currently, the two main political parties in the United States are the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Every political party has what is known as a platform. A platform is a public statement of the party's main beliefs and guiding principles. Each of the stated principles of a platform is known as a plank. Party platforms can be rather lengthy, with modern parties having hundreds of planks. The party will adopt or update its platform every 4 years at the party's national convention. Political parties serve a wide variety of purposes. One of the most important functions a party serves is to nominate candidates. This helps a voter narrow his or her choices. Instead of voters studying a potentially limitless field of candidates, each party selects nominees. This allows the voter to focus attention on just 3 or 4 candidates and make a more informed decision. Another function of political parties is to inform voters. Whether it's through local, grassroots involvement such as letter writing campaigns, or party leaders speaking on television, parties attempt to let the general public know what's going on. This could also take the form of passing out flyers or pamphlets, or staging a large protest rally. The party that is in power can also set the agenda. This means that the party leaders will establish a course for the nation to follow. Whether it's a good course or a bad course would likely determine how long that particular party stayed in power. One final function of political parties is to serve as watchdog. Both parties do an effective job of watching the other party to make sure they are doing the things they are supposed to. If one party becomes corrupt, the other will surely inform the public. So, even though the Founding Fathers did not desire political parties to exist, they will surely continue to be a part of the American political system for years to come.
All right. So that kind of gave us a breakdown of the different political parties and how everything was formed at the very beginning. So let's just talk really quick about political parties. They're a group of voters with common interests who want to influence the government. The U.S. has two parties because there's only two major parties that hold enough power in order to be able to make it through elections and stuff like that. And that's just the way our the Constitution kind of led it to, even though it was kind of an unintended consequence. The function of political parties, they talked about, they nominate a candidate. They inform voters of what's going on. They ensure candidates are qualified, and then they help govern in the Congress and state legislatures. And they also act as watchdogs, especially for officials of other parties. And that's why you see like this bickering going back and forth. It's like, hey, this party does this, and then they point fingers back saying that they do all this other stuff, right? And that's, I think, what we hopefully most of us dislike the most. There are third-party parties, and we'll talk about those just a little bit. And they don't have a lot of influence, except if there's maybe somebody that came in and had a lot of money and could really do some things on a wide scale. So, for example, Ross Perot in the 1992 election was a political candidate that ran as an independent. And this is when the then president, the incumbent, was President H.W. Bush. And he was running against Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton hadn't been made president yet. But in that election, Ross Perot took enough of the votes to actually switch the point percentage of the different states over to Bill Clinton and making Clinton win that election. If not, if he had not have ran, Ross Perot or President H.W. Bush would have probably been president for a second term, but he was only a one-term president. So today, the two political parties, one is, the first one's the Republican Party, the main parties. They were born from the dispute from over slavery. President Lincoln was the first Republican president, and they tend to support more of states' rights over government rights. Less change, more tradition, less taxes on the rich, less government spending. Their symbol's the elephant. Yeah, I get this question a lot, Liam, about what this has to do with geography. This is just part of the culture of a certain area, right? So if you go into, let's say, over in England, right, they have what's called a parliamentary system. And so the culture is changed because of the way the government's set up. So they don't actually, so they have like a prime minister and that kind of things. But I'm glad you asked that. So that's kind of the connection that they want you to make is how governments play an impact on the culture of an area. So good question, though. Okay, the next one, here's some pictures here. Like they're Lincoln, Ronald Reagan. These slides are kind of old, so it doesn't have probably the front runner now for the Republican Party is Donald Trump or President Trump. So he would be that there. The Democratic Party has its roots back to Jefferson's Democratic Republican Party. They tend to support more of like a federal government, more change, taxing the rich more, spending on more on like government social programs such as welfare, and their symbol is the donkey. And here's some common Democratic, well, not all of them are politicians, like Oprah Winfrey. She's a Democrat, a supporter of the Democratic Party. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. Right now, President Biden is a Democrat. So, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you take just a second and fill in the blanks. So I'm going to pause for a second here and let you guys do that. All right. Okay. So if we look at this here, we have the ones that have the roots from the Jefferson's Democratic Party, strong federal government, that kind of stuff. That would be the Democratic Party. And then the Republican Party, we just talked about, symbol was the elephant. Okay. All right. So we already kind of done that. One of the things I'll just kind of mention here is they talk about the leaning to the right and to the left. So where that kind of came from was if you look at legislatures, like the actual place where they sit, on there, they'll have the Republicans on the right in the legislature and the Democrats on the left. And so when they're talking about your left or right or left, that's how they situate them in there. And they've kind of taken that and say, well, you lean far right, which basically means that you're always in the establishment of that political party, like in the very hard ideals of it, and the other ones were over there. What is federalist? Good question. So federalist basically means that the federal government should be mostly in charge of everything. Okay. So the Republicans believe in anti-federalist, which basically the federal government should have limited authority and that it should go back down to the local governments and states to be able to make what is appropriate for the people living there. So that's the difference between federalist and anti-federalist. Okay, we did talk a little bit about third parties. Here's some things about them. One, they rarely win any elections. However, they can affect the outcome of elections. And so reasons they fail are one, there's not enough votes to get on the ballot. They also have trouble raising money, and they have a lack of name recognition. So the right versus the left. I was talking about this a little bit before, as you said, where they're sit in the thing, but being right are the people who hold more traditional values. So the traditional values, like they're talking about, like most Republicans are very big on like family values, and like they're against like things like abortion, and they believe in like traditional marriage, that kind of stuff. On the left, they're more like supportive of just kind of changes in what society's doing and that kind of stuff. And so that's a good way to kind of go there. So if you are interested, I do not force my people to do this because is it gonna? There we go. Okay, I'm gonna throw this in the chat. So here is a little quiz that you could take. I don't want you to take it if you don't want to, because it does go over some of those hot topic issues, kind of what, actually maybe what you believe in. But if you are interested to see where you fit on the political spectrum, this is kind of a cool little quiz that will show kind of where you're at. And you can, it's just kind of interesting of how you kind of think, Okay, that is it. So what happens today, as I said, today is the last thing, but you have just a political quiz that just kind of talks about the things we went over today. It might also have some current events in there for like who was the Speaker of the House at a certain time. Really quick quiz. I think it's like 10 questions or something like that. Yeah, 10 questions. Okay. And so some of them may require you to look them up, but it should be you can do that as many times as you'd like. And that is really it. So do you guys have any questions before I take off?